Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate all of you so much. Quick reminder that our bookstore ad is now at the very last slide, well, second to the last slide, for people who have complained and said that they can't ever find where we are able to sell our books. And it is because if you are using a phone to view our videos, you do not see the information that is in the description of the video. So you don't see the recipes or the comments or anything like that, links to our other things. So the bookstore URL is now at the end. And we're going to continue with self-reliance and especially food security today. We are finally, after about 8 years, getting some tomatoes that produce a little bit. Now they are not producing such a huge amount that I have tons of tomatoes to can. Rather, if you look right here, Jim goes out every 3 or 4 days and comes back with a bag full of tomatoes like this. And so then I have to wait for about this many, plus I have some in the sink here, in order to do a batch of tomatoes of some type. Now, because there's just these mixtures of tomatoes, and some of them are these, many of them are these little tiny cherry tomatoes that have such a delicious flavor, I don't want to can them like whole tomatoes. Rather, I'm going to be doing today tomato sauce. And it's so easy because you do not have to blanch the tomatoes ahead of time to remove the skins. If you have a product like this, which is a food mill, and any kind of food mill will do. I love this one and I'll be demonstrating this one. I think this is on our Amazon site, on our Amazon store. I'll double check and be sure it gets there because I know we did get that from Amazon and it works just great. I also have a larger Victoria strainer that I've used in applesauce as well, so any kind of a food mill will be just fine. Now, in order to make tomato sauce in the 8-ounce jars rather than the pint jars, the USDA recipe calls for pints. If I do them in pints, I always have leftovers and sometimes they don't get used. So I am doing them in a smaller size jar, which you can do. But I will be following the processing times for pints because there is no tested processing time for the 8-ounce jar. This is 1 cup. And the way to do tomato sauce so that it doesn't separate, we've all seen tomato products where there's liquid on the bottom and then the solids are at the top. I don't want my tomato sauce to be that way. I want it to be viscous throughout. And so I'm going to show you the trick on how to do that. And it starts with just quartered tomatoes on the bottom of a pot. No water. And the least amount of slicing you can do on the tomatoes, the better, so that that enzyme doesn't get released that causes the water to separate. So I'm going to be turning this on. And I'm going to just be stirring these up until they start to boil. Now they will make plenty of juice on their own ultimately, but I want to be sure that they don't burn during this first part. So while those are coming to a boil, I'm going to prepare others. And with these little cherry tomatoes, I'm just going to pick them from the vines and just toss them in, skin and all. So that's how those are going to go. And then behind here, I have a little cutting board with a knife. And I'm just going to quarter tomatoes that are about that size and put them in. But I don't want to build up a whole lot at first. I want these to come to a boil first. So I'm using my little butane stove, and off to the side we have our carbon monoxide alarm in case anything should happen. Now I have a variety of tomatoes. These are just regular little tomatoes, and then I have a lot of Romas. And I'm just doing everything together. And while these are starting to come to a boil, getting these all hot, and see they're starting to lose their juice, and that is just what I want. I'm getting some others ready to go into the pan. Sometimes we wonder what we can possibly do with these cherry tomatoes. I've eaten thousands of them for work, it seems like. So I'm just tossing them in here, and they do make a delicious tomato sauce. All right, these are started, so I'm going to start adding more, and I'll probably have all of these tomatoes in this one pot by the time we're done. So I'm going to keep adding to those, and the skins are on, which is really nice. So I will come back when I have that pot filled. The tomatoes are all in, and they've been simmering for about 25 minutes. Whoa! They are done. Look at that. All the tomatoes are soft. They floated to the top. So I'm turning this off. Good, good, good. This just looks great. All of that 3 bags of tomatoes got in here. All right, the next step then is to use our food mill. So I'm going to go off camera and get everything all set up for that, and then we will be back. We are in the sun from the skylight, and I'm sorry because it makes the colors go weird. Here is my food mill, and these little legs fold out so that they can fit over the top of a bowl. And there are 3 grates of blades. I'm going to start with the largest size first, and it just snaps right in place, right down inside, nice and tight. We're going to do that one first, and then we're going to come back and do the middle one. We're going to get all the rough stuff first, and this just fits right here. Because I'm making sauce which is thicker, I don't want all of this juice in there. So I'm going to use this slotted spoon and let a lot of it drain out as much as possible before I start grinding. And then once that is in, it just goes like this. Now the seeds are getting through, and that's fine. They will not get through the next one, or at least most of them won't. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I get through all of the tomato solids in this pan. And you can see what's happening here. It's quite thick, and you can see the seeds. So we will be back when I have this first iteration finished. I'm still trying to dodge the sun, but I made the first pass, and here it is. You can see that it is full of seeds, but it is about the right thickness, so I'm pleased with that. Over here we have the juice that is left from straining out all of the solids. I will not be throwing this away. I can run that through a fine mesh strainer to get all of the rest of the solids and seeds out, and then I can have a good base for a soup or a stew that uses tomatoes. But right now we're going to focus on getting this part done. So I'm just going to put a scoop at a time in here, a couple scoops, and run it through again. We will get rid of most of the seeds, but not all. There will be some seeds in our tomato sauce. I don't really care. This is going much faster than the other one did. The other one got rid of the skins and lots of the seeds. And when it gets down to the bottom and pretty dry, you see all of those seeds. Well, I don't want to keep trying to force them through the hole, so I'll back this blade up, and it kind of piles everything up right there, and I'll do that 2 or 3 times until I have quite a dry mix right there, and then I spoon that out and get another scoop going. So I'm going to show you how I get this other stuff out. So I just do a little backwards. And I'm discarding mostly seeds, some skin pieces. And this goes pretty quick. So I'll do the same thing to another scoop, until I get done, and then we'll show you the next step. Here's how it turned out. There are a few seeds, but the thickness is pretty darn good for tomato sauce. I'm going to take it. If it wasn't thick enough, then I would just put it in a pan and boil it down a little bit more, but I am not going to do that. Instead, we're going to go ahead and load the jars, but before we do, this is a tomato product, and as such it needs to be acidified. And I want to just check the pH of this. Know that when we can high acid foods, that acid has to be lower than 4.6 pH. So let's just test to see how it is in its natural state. So it is between a 5 and a 6. It is not low enough. It needs to be down here with these darker colors. And so we're going to follow USDA guidelines. This is 2 quarts, 8 cups. And so per quart, we need to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice per quart. So I'm going to be putting in 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And also a teaspoon of salt per quart, which has nothing to do with pH and only to do with flavor. So I am going to do that right now as well. That way I don't have to do it individually in the jars. So I'm going to stir. And there are seeds in here, but as I said before, it doesn't bother me at all. Okay, I'm just going to taste because I've got to like the taste before we bottle it. Very nice. Now we're going to do another pH test to see if the acid is as low as it needs to be. Not quite a 3, but it's easily a 4. And since it has to be 4.6 or lower, we are good to go. I always check pH on things that I water bath can. Now I have jars sitting in hot water right here. We are just going to fill them up, and we should get 8 or 9. Wipe the rims, put the lids on, putting the rings on finger tight. I think we got 9. I have water simmering over in my stock pot that we're going to use for our water bath canner today. There is a little rack in the bottom. I had this much left over. I will probably add that to, I have the juice back over there to kind of thicken that juice up a little bit, and we'll see what that does. So I'm just going to lift these over into the canner right now, and the water is simmering. And once it comes to a boil and bubbles over the top of these jars, solidly for 45 minutes, that's what the time is for our elevation, then they will be done, and we will bring you back when we take them out. So see you then. So our timer just went off. They have been canning they've been under boiling water for 45 minutes, and we're ready to take them out. But I want to show you first what I got from the leftover juice. And in fact, once I added that little bit of the tomato sauce that I had left, I think that it really helped. I put it through a very fine strainer, strained out all of the seeds, and I just tasted it for the heck of it to see how watery it was. And I was so pleasantly surprised. It is very close to tomato juice. So I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and drink it. I love tomato juice, and so that will be just a really nice, refreshing treat on these hot, hot days that we're still having. But they're not 115 like they were last Tuesday. At least we're down in the high 90s. All right, so ready to take this out. Well, I have one lid 2 lids that buckled. Lids today are just, it's difficult to find good ones. I'll show you those. We didn't have any siphoning, but look at that lid. And another one. That's just so ridiculous. They still may pop. I get siphoning too, but boy, this time it is just as clean as can be. So take a look. So that is pretty. So these will hopefully all pop. I'm going to actually mark these 2 that have buckled in case they pop and the buckles go away. I just want to monitor them a little bit, but everything else looks good. So we have 9 new half pints to add to the 6 that I did a week or so ago. So that's 15 pints of tomato sauce that we have so far from our effort with tomatoes this year, and I am so pleased. Plus the bonus of this tomato juice. So thank you for being with us, and it's always such a good feeling to grow your own and can your own and have it on your food storage shelf to use whenever you need it. So thanks so much, and we will do food security together, and we will see you at our next video.